The Mendon-Honeoye Falls-Lima Sentinel welcomes you to this edition of the Mayor's and Supervisors Weekly Update, brought to you by...
Each week, our community makes history. Each week, you make history. And each week, there's only one source to turn to for the first take on history. You know what that is? Subscribe to the Sentinel right now to discover the history being made in your own backyard.
The Mendon-Honeoye Falls-Lima Sentinel. More than just your news, it's your history.
Hey there, everybody, and welcome to this week's version of the Mayors and Supervisors Update. I'm Chris Carosa, publisher of the Mendon-Honeoye Falls-Lima Sentinel, and each week we bring you the thoughts and comments of our local elected leaders. This week we're going to be starting out with Mike Faulk in the town of Lima. Mike, how are we doing in Mount Lima?
We're doing very well, Chris. Thanks for hosting this again for all of us, as usual. Everyone can see that we are, the town is excavating over in front of Meadowlark Park, which is on 15A north of the village. The hole in the ground is for a new vault, for a new water meter placement for them. We had to do some exploratory to be able to actually find their water service because the maps just did not match. Thank you to John Bailey for his custom woodworking, making the trim piece for our stairs up on the third floor that has been missing for some time. It looks really nice, and now we just have to get it stained. Livingston County is reporting that the harmful algal bloom are back. And they are in Canisius Lake, and so there is currently an advisory about do not drink the water from the lake, do not cook, do not swim, wade, or play in the lake. Any drinking water that is drawn from the lake as the public water supply is treated and still safe to use. Simply do not put a straw in the lake and consume the water. Senator Gallivan sent a note along saying that they are holding a electronics recycling event on October 2nd in Avon. And that you must pre-register to attend it. It is free. If you go to Senator Gallivan's website, the link to register is right there. Let's see. Livingston County Veterans Services Director Jason Skinner was just at Fort Drum this week addressing the ETS soldiers. And so ETS, end termination service, that's the people who are getting out of the service and headed back into civilian life. There is about to be an ETS sponsorship pilot program that is going to run in Livingston County. The intent of the program is to bridge the gap where most soldiers who are ETSing decide to commit suicide because they feel that they have not got anyone to talk to, have not reintegrated with society well, and many other factors. So the intent is to bridge that gap, which happens very close in the first year after the ETS, with active mentorship at their destination. Training for the mentors is going to be held very soon. Along with that, having something to actually go to is a very large help. Removing barriers for veterans to be able to actually find a job is a priority. One such barrier is that veterans who are assigned to a post in New York State, but are from a different state, which is known as their home of record, they are not allowed to take any civil service exams here in New York. Even though technically they're living here, it's just the record shows that they're from somewhere else. Removing that barrier would allow veterans that are active duty personnel who are assigned to local bases to take the local civil service exams and then hopefully take a job and stay when they leave the service. Livingston County will also have a veterans discount app for your phones. This is going to go live in November. If you are a Livingston County business who would like to participate, call the Veteran Services Agency at 243-7960 so they can get your information into the app. App will be furnished to the veterans, all the veterans around, so that they can simply use their phone to figure out if the business or place they're shopping anywhere near where they are has a discount program that they can take advantage of. And that's all I've got, Chris.
All right. Thanks, Mike. So what we're going to do now is we actually have a report from John Moffitt, the town supervisor of Mendon, that he has asked me to read in his absence since he had another meeting that he had to go to. This is from John Moffitt. He said, at the last town board meeting, I presented my proposed 2022 Town of Mendon budget with a 10% tax cut for all town and village residents. We were able to do this while overcoming pandemic-related budget challenges and building a new splash park and military memorial on Semmel Road. Other highlights from the 2022 budget include fully funding quality of life services, including spring and fall brush collection each year, increased funding for the Mendon Public Library, increased funding for senior programs, funding for the Mendon Youth Center, Community Band, and Historical Society. Since I took office, again, I'm reading for John Moffitt, my top priority has been to keep more money in the pockets of taxpayers while still delivering high-quality town services. I believe the 2022 Mendon Town budget does just that. It lives within its means, strives to do more with less, and puts the interests of taxpayers first. You are welcome to review the budget on townofmendon.org. The Mendon Town Board will vote to establish the preliminary 2022 town budget at the September 27th meeting. A public hearing will be set at that time, and a final budget vote is likely to take place in October. That's John Moffitt's report. And now we're back to Eileen and the village of Scottsville. How are we doing in Scottsville, Eileen?
We're doing fine, Chris, and good afternoon to everyone. We're going to start off with our village board meeting that was held on Tuesday. Some of those highlights is we passed a resolution authorizing the mayor to sign a grant application for $1,000 to buy shade trees for the village, which will be good for us. We reviewed local law 170-25 historic preservation and found that all of local law 90 historic preservation is contained within 170-25. We repealed 190 and now we have just 170-25 on the books. The only thing missing was the necessity of a quorum, and the village attorney stated that a quorum is not necessary since they are an advisory group. A new epoxy floor will be installed in the Johnson Park Pavilion the week of October 18th. ARPA money will be used for this project as it will make the floor easier to keep clean and sanitized. And that's one of the things we can work on with our ARPA money. Pinpoint will be doing a phone system cloud conversion for the village office. The upfront payment for labor will set up the cloud PBX, migrate our current PBX to it, update all the phones, add a phone blast module, and anything else necessary to get us moved over. This also will be covered by ARPA funds. It will immediately lower our monthly cost by about $30 a month. And this conversion will allow us to get emergency information to our residents by text or voicemail. For the DPW, Main Street and Beckwith Avenue striping, as well as the repainting of crosswalks and stop sign lines, should be finished by the end of the month. Brush pickup will stop at the end of September. You can still bring your brush and debris, yard debris, to the DPW on Saturdays between 9 and noon until the end of September. There will be weekly leaf vacuuming during October through early December. There is no brush pickup during leaf season. Do not bag the leaves. Leaves must be raked as close as possible to the road in long rows. So, and please avoid making a big mound. It makes it much easier to collect the leaves if they are in nice long rows. Also, do not mix brush, nuts, apples, or other trash with the leaves. Makes it difficult on our leaf back. To reiterate what Mike said, there is an e-cycling event on October 2nd at Avon High School from 8:30 a.m. to 12 noon. It is a free event for general public, but it does require registration, as Mike said. You can go to Senator Gallivan or Assemblywoman Burns's site, a website to get more information. Also, you can go to the Sun King website, which is www.sunking.com/events/avon-10-02-21. We hope you will support this event. It will give us a way to get rid of some of our electronic equipment. Now going on, last week I talked about the cannabis legislation and what it entailed. And today I'd like to inform our residents and anybody else in any other community about how the cannabis legislation affects your municipality. And first, there are two new agencies being set up. First is the Office of Cannabis Management, and then the Cannabis Control Board. They will determine the density and distribution of sites. The purpose being to spread the sites throughout the state and not have an over-concentration in one area. There will be no home-based dispensaries or on-site consumption establishments. Now, part of the legislation involves a tax on the sale of cannabis of 9%. Of that sales tax money, 5% will go to the state and 4% to the locality. Of that 4%, 1% goes to the county and the 3% remains in the municipality. For us, that would include the town of Wheatland and the village of Scottsville, depending whether or not we opt in or opt out of retail sales. If we opt out, we receive no sales tax revenue at all. So I want to explain opting in or opting out and the whole idea of permissive referendum. If we choose to do so, we need to opt out of retail sales and or on-site consumption establishments by December 31st, 2021. If we don't, we are automatically opted in. And once you opt in, you are locked into that decision. If we opt out, you can opt in back in at any time, but once you opt back in, that decision is final. Now, to opt out, we must pass a local law opting out of retail sales and or on-site consumption. If the board decides to opt out, the local law will be subject to a permissive referendum. Now, in a permissive referendum, you need a petition requiring the municipality to present the law for ballot or vote. The petition must be filed within 30 days of passing the local law and be signed by 20% of the registered voters in the previous general village election. Not how many people actually voted, but the total amount of registered voters. The village may bypass the petition by submitting the permissive referendum on their own. So if the local law is subject to a permissive referendum, the local law must be submitted by January 1st, which will then allow for a March ballot for those communities with a March general election. Now, for Scottsville, our general village election is in March. So if Scottsville opts out, if we get a permissive referendum filed, then the ballot could be put on our March election. So I hope that explains it concisely enough. And that's it for Scottsville, and we hope everybody has a good week.
Eileen, if I could just ask a follow-up. So for Scottsville, you normally have elections in March. What about the town of Wheatland or any other towns for that matter?
The town of Wheatland has their elections in November. So I'm not sure. You'd have to check with Wheatland to see whether they've opted out or opted in. I've heard nothing about a permissive referendum in that case.
Mike or Jerry, do you know when the permissive referendum would be from a town level?
My understanding was a little bit different, I guess, that we would had to have completed everything one way or the other by the end of the year. So the permissive referendum, if the resolution was in December, then the permissive referendum would run a month into January. If the petition was not brought, then it's finished. If the petition is brought, then you'd have to go through the steps to get a special election, which does take a couple of months to put together. You work with your county's board of elections, and if it then can be held in conjunction with a village one, you do save some money because the municipalities do have to pay the election inspectors and. So from a town point of view, that you would want to, I think, everything tied up by the end of the calendar year, so that you could tag into the spring elections on the special basis.
Mm-hmm. So it might be the rules are a little different for towns and villages, and maybe even between counties.
Right.
But we'll see. I mean, it's only relevant if there's a permissive referendum that comes into place.
Yeah, it just so happens that our village election is in March. And so having to opt in or opt out by the end of December would throw a permissive referendum into 30 days after, would put us into January. And if we do this, we'll do the local law at our board meeting in December. So it will be before the 31st. That would throw it into January. And that gives us enough time to get it on the ballot in March.
Okay, great. Thanks, Eileen. So next, I'll read the report from Rick Milne, Honeoye Falls, who's also had a conflict today. He has a couple of quick points. The Village of Honeoye Falls Board of Trustees meeting will be held at the Community Center on North Main Street on Monday, September 20th, beginning at 7 p.m. The meeting will be open to the public, but we do ask any attendees to consider wearing a mask. There will also be a Zoom option, and that is published on our village Facebook page and website, which is www.villageofhoneoyefalls.org. We were very happy to see the soft opening of the OK Beer Company at West Main Lanes this past Friday evening, and are thankful for Megan and Seth for their investment and vision for the future of this facility and in our village community. This is certainly going to be a fun place to go to. Best of luck to the OK Beer team. Our comprehensive plan review is nearing completion, and we thank the committee for their efforts and village trustee Sherry Stotler for her efforts in chairing this committee. Lastly, we're excited for the upcoming release of the Iron Fireman Oktoberfest Lager that has been created and will be released on September 26th from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. at Heroes Brewery, 543 Atlantic Avenue in Rochester. We hope to see a full story about this project in the Sentinel soon, so that those involved will be able to tell the whole story. And that's from Rick Milne, everyone. Just reading what he wrote. All right, thanks. So on to Jerry in the wonderful town of Rush.
Well, I like that, Chris. Thank you very much for that lead in, because we are the best kept secret in Western New York. And I don't have a lot to report on because, as you know, I was on vacation. I went to Nova Scotia, predominantly Prince Edward Island, and it was wonderful, absolutely wonderful. But before you read too much into that, it's not quite as wonderful as the town of Rush, but it is wonderful. two things I like to bring back from Prince Edward Island was one, the way they manage the COVID up there. They have very, very low numbers, but the way they manage it is just unbelievable. And I'll give you one quick example of that. You get off the 9 Mile Bridge to get to Prince Edward Island, you immediately go onto an expressway, much like 390, and all of a sudden up ahead you see what looks like a big circus tent. Well, it's not a circus tent. It's an instant test area. You drive right in, they swab your nostrils, and if you test positive, they turn you right around and send you back wherever you came from. If you've got a negative reading, you are welcome to come into their area. It's just unbelievable, and they don't give options up there. If they say you got to wear a mask, you've got to wear a mask. There's no, well, I'll show you my identity card. No, you got to put the mask on. I thought that was very interesting because in our supervisors meetings over the last year, several times the subject of enforcement came up, and no one ever spoke of a positive component for enforcement. So it was just tell people what they need to do and hope they do it. And I think that's one of the reasons why we're seeing the numbers going up. But up in Prince Edward Island, they know what they're doing. On the town situation, we've got a town board meeting coming up next Wednesday, the 22nd. I hope to see a lot of people attending because we're going to, at that time, present our tentative budget. We've got that all worked out. And I'd want to thank very much the Supervisor Secretary, Catherine Hankins, and our Finance Director, Christine Pereira, for taking on 99% of that work, which allowed me to do other things. And I appreciate it very much, and people should recognize them for that wonderful contribution. I also want to mention that we're going to have a community water forum, and that community water forum will be held at the Rush United Methodist Church on the Rush-Lima Road on October 6th at 6 p.m. And what this is for is to make sure that everybody understands what it takes to form a water district, how much the costs are, and hopefully we can all get together, because there are a lot of people who go around talking like they know what it's all about, but in the end, they don't know what it's all about. So this hopefully will be to educate everyone, and also maybe present an opportunity to get started with establishing a couple of districts. I have to also bring up the fact that cannabis in Canada, you wouldn't, unless you've been there recently, you wouldn't believe the cannabis facilities for producing this stuff. And I talked to a young woman who was a recent college graduate who's been hired by one of the major producers up there, who said that the 1 month sales, August sales, just from her company, she was hired as a financial analyst, they were $16 million just for 1 month. And I'm looking at these facilities up there and I'm thinking to myself, oh my Lord in heaven, where are we headed as a society? whether you're in the best kept secret in Western New York or Canada or wherever, because one of the things that troubles me is the conflicts you read where, you know, they continue to do research, health research, continue to do research, which never has any good news. It's always got more bad news. And it just makes me wonder. Anyway, that's about it for the town of Rush, other than I'm glad to have returned because it is the best kept secret in Western New York. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Anybody have anything they may have forgotten that they want to add? Seeing none, thank you all for watching. Remember, we're on YouTube and Facebook every Sunday at 1 o'clock, or if you missed the episode show live, you can always read the transcript in the next week's Sentinel. So thanks a lot, everyone, and bye-bye for now.
Thank you, Chris.
Imagine yourself communicating with a difference. Pan-Dimensional Solutions helps you do this. Whether live spectator events, taped broadcasts, or real-time audience-engaging programs, you can benefit immediately from the tools Pan-Dimensional Solutions will share with you. Do you want to make a difference? Contact us at pandimensional.com.